the principles behind this building aren't new, and that is that to be energy efficient, you've got to pay attention to the environment that you're in. Which way does the sun come up and go down? Before we had the magic thermostat on the wall and inexpensive energy, we could afford to ignore that. Our forefathers didn't. If you look at the kinds of buildings that were done in various areas out of native materials, that grew out of the climate, then what you had were buildings that were designed for people to be more comfortable. In the South, broad overhangs, high ceilings, transoms to promote breezes coming through the house. We moved away from that, and now we're moving back. And obviously with the increase in the cost of energy, that is something of interest to everyone. It's now no longer just what's the cheapest way for us to occupy a building, but what also is the cost of occupying that building in the way of the monthly expense. So there are a number of options, and a number of those have been explored in this building in terms of some of the things that have been put in place, as well as some of the things that are planned for that aren't in place yet. The building, first of all, is oriented on a north-south axis to where the primary windows are on the north or the south, where you predictably can deal with the sun angles. The only windows that faced west, and because of the particular orientation of the building, we chose not to eliminate windows, but we put solar blades on the outside, sun deflectors, however, and they're on the outside because if you put them on the inside, then the sun is still hitting the glass and you're having to size the air conditioning system to handle that load. By putting them on the outside of the building, we keep that heat from hitting the glass, which will reduce the overall air conditioning load on the building and the energy use of the building. At the same time, doing what we did protects the view. We wanted people that work in here not to just be looking at the backside of blinds or at a blank wall, because again, studies have shown that people perform better in an environment where they can see outside, and also in an environment that has natural light. From the very beginning, even before anybody had ever heard the word LEED, which stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, FAYPWC was behind the concept to develop this campus more like a campus as opposed to a bunch of buildings sitting in the sea of asphalt, which was typical of this kind of facility. They were very much supportive of the idea of keeping as much of the vegetation in place. There were already trees on site. Many of the trees here are the same trees that were here before. To keep more of the land in grass and landscaping as opposed to asphalt. All of the buildings on this campus are oriented on a similar axis to where they take advantage of the sun angles, they take advantage of natural light, and they try to keep harmful light out, or light that's not wanted. As a result, all of these buildings operate for less than would be otherwise would be the case. They also use masonry and they use concrete, things that add mass to the building, which act like an enormous flywheel that keeps the building from changing its temperature dramatically in a short period of time. It's very important recognizing that we're at the end of the era of inexpensive energy, and that the importation of foreign oil is very much in the forefront of news and concerns in terms of national security as well as trade deficits. So that what we do use, we need to use intelligently. There are alternatives that are examined, but our buildings, a lot of people concentrate on cars, but our buildings actually represent the greatest amount of energy used in this country. And so that represents an opportunity. Great strides have been made starting with the oil embargo of 1973, when we first realized our vulnerability. Lighting standards have changed. This building, for instance, uses probably less than half of the amount of lighting that even the last building we did for PwC did. These light fixtures hanging in this space only have one tube in them, not three. These fixtures use a T5 tube. T12s, which most people remember, were 1.5-inch round tubes, 12/8. Then we went to T8s, which we used in the other building, and now we're down to a single 5/8-inch tube, which is high efficiency, puts out more light for less energy in the building. So those are things that are going on, which again helps us to get more bang for our buck. And the more they're used, the more the price comes down. So we're understanding what that means. We're understanding what it means to be good citizens in the way we use those resources. There is actually now are mandates on a state and federal level on buildings that have to be met. There isn't an option. You have to meet those. On any public project done that's over 20,000 square feet from now on, we have to show a 30% reduction of energy over 2004 standards. That is a dramatic decrease in energy usage. So just like you hear about trying to make cars more efficient, this effort's been going on in buildings for some time. And obviously, PwC, as a provider of energy, has been very much interested in seeing that we have efficient use of energy in our community. The other thing that we need to work on is how we grow so that the sprawl of our communities aren't such that the only way you can get a loaf of bread is to get in a car. As that changes and people can live, work, and play in a single location, again, you see a dramatic decrease in energy. Buildings in cities that are next to each other are like a group of people huddling around each other. They're more energy efficient. There's not as much exposure. So that's the sort of thing you'll continue to see happening with intelligent growth in our communities. PwC certainly is to be recognized for being at the forefront of looking at ways to be more efficient in the way we use energy and water, for that matter. And that has been something that we have done in these buildings to try to make it intelligent use of our resources as we create the places where we work, live, and play.